Hi everyone, this is Sky, and I just wanted to come on briefly to talk about the very spooky and very fun full moon in Taurus we're going to be having on Halloween, October 31st of 2020. This is a super fun video to make, and I'm excited to talk about some of the intuitive messages that I'm feeling coming in about this moon. So, yeah, interesting that it's falling exactly on Halloween this year. It's always a very interesting time of year as we start to get into the more concentrated part of Scorpio season. And of course, every season you have a full moon in the opposite sign and a new moon in the season sign. So Scorpio season, you have a new moon in Scorpio and a full moon in Taurus. So what I'm feeling about this full moon in Taurus happening on October 31st, and echoing probably all the way from like October 25th to November 5th, I'm honestly feeling it's a little bit of a nightmare, okay? And I'll really talk about all of the different sides of it, but it's going to really show and shine a spotlight onto the aspects of ourselves and aspects of our experiences that are dark, okay? We are getting a very clear look into the dark side of what we do, of what we, try to put our stamp on, what we try to really manifest, is really getting purified, starting with this full moon in Taurus, okay? Because the full moon in Taurus is one of the most benefic and benevolent energies we could have right now. Having Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto getting into the latest degrees of Capricorn, going direct, having Scorpio season, having a Mercury and a Mars retrograde. There are a lot of problems that we're working out, a lot of knots that we're trying to untangle right now energetically. And the full moon in Taurus is so good. It's an exalted moon. Taurus is the moon's favorite sign, okay? So it is so benefic and so benevolent that it's not going to let anything dark, tangled, and messy exist. So this incredible time of October 31st is like a marker. It's like it's marking a point in time where we can't really move forward past it, still feeling that things are completely out of whack or misaligned or knotted up. So it's going to really give us a lot of tools and a lot of capabilities to understand the makeup of our life, the foundation of what we're dealing with. We haven't had this kind of earth energy since Virgo season, so it will probably kind of bring up some of the things that we were going through in Virgo season, so like August 21st to September 21st. There may be a few things that come up from that period of time that we have to delve through and work on. I'm also thinking that the full moon in Taurus is going to shine a light onto how we are doing with relationships, okay? I've been talking about how this is not a relationship-oriented time, this entire year. It's about context, it's about where we've been, it's about what we want to do with our purpose and what material choices we're making with that in mind. So it's not held a lot of space for us to have like new relationships or new, romantic experiences. That kind of changes up around this time. There is an opportunity, there's an opportunity to date or come into contact with a soulmate. As I was doing Taurus's November 2020 reading, the energy was so different than all the other signs. It was like Taurus had this, sort of almost like exclusive window to, really understand the momentum that they're on karmically when it comes to romance and when it comes to dating. Yes, the November 2020 readings are available on Patreon and finishing up. If you guys want to check that out, I'll link it below. But what I'm understanding about full moon in Taurus for everybody, okay, is that we have to now really be able to link things together. We have to be able to understand how we were motivated by previous relationships and start to blend those things together. Like what purpose and motivation have I taken on now because of those past relationships or because of those things I went through in the past. Having the direct Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto in Capricorn, as well as Scorpio season, as well as full moon in Taurus, makes me think that we are dealing with the past, or we're dealing with what has motivated us, and maybe getting a spotlight onto what it really is. Like, I think that some of us maybe have secret motivations. Some of us don't know it, but we're actually, so committed to this or that because of pain or a trauma of the past. And this is kind of like a quality assurance for our motivation, basically. That's really what this time is in a nutshell. Quality assurance for our motivation. We're really tested on integrity, tested on originality, tested on, who we are and what we represent and identity, okay? And I think the full moon in Taurus is going to be an incredible gift and an incredible benefic thought form about our identity and what we want to encompass. Okay, it's pretty vast stuff, I would say. Like, we're all trying to maybe encompass more than we need to, or trying to keep up so many things that we can't handle. It's very Nine of Wands energy that I'm feeling coming in with the Mars retrograde and Mercury retrograde still during this full moon. Whereas the full moon is very healthy, this energy in and of itself is a very nice energy of kinship and acceptance and passive reception. Okay, having Mercury and Mars retrograde at the same time, though, says to me that our very conscious mind, our communication, and also our instinctual drive is not really well calibrated in correlation to the way that our emotional sense of receptivity is wanting. So there is a frustration that we have to identify on October 31st. And I think that journaling is so good. Whatever we can do to try to communicate to ourselves, because Mercury will go direct on November 3rd while this energy is still echoing. So there's probably going to be a revelation, or there's going to be an epiphany that you might have about your emotional motivation, about what you're allowing yourself to receive in your life, and about how some of that might be not really what we signed up for, or not really it anymore, okay? As we went from the time of the triple retrograde Capricorn conjunction over the late spring and summer months, and we've come into these autumn months here with the direct energy, I think that a lot of us haven't woken up to a very different context yet. We might have been putting all of the things in order. We might have been already totally lining up the chessboard to have this new context, but something still hasn't clicked yet. Something still hasn't moved over. So I would definitely anticipate that this full moon in Taurus will, between October 31st and November 3rd, cause a huge wake-up call or a huge realization about any type of autopilot or unknowingly having moved into a territory that you didn't want to be in, with Neptune and Uranus retrograde also, sort of waking up and starting to sort of groggily, like you're groggy and you're like, oh gosh, this is where I am. Wow, this is what all these years of work have lined up for me. And what's really beautiful about this full moon in Taurus is that now there's like just a gift of knowledge from the universe. There could be the gift of like a relationship, okay? Somebody could walk into your life. A new person could walk into your life. A reminder or just a familiar feeling could be felt by you that reminds you of who you really are. Like, there's some really cool like wake-up calls relating to identity that I'm feeling with this transit. And also some strong empowerment too, for the people who have been working on identity, who have been working on getting, everything in order and making sure that everything is sturdy, stable, and secure. It's like the Taurus energy can just really glide in and not have to deal with any of that foundational minutia. And what happens is you have just a really cool, receptive, and given energy. It's like a given reality or a given circumstance that just lines everything up, like the Rubik's Cube coming into alignment suddenly between October 31st and November 3rd. And being that it is Scorpio season, and that this Scorpio season is one of the most empowered Scorpio seasons, again, Scorpio is very well harmonious with Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto in Capricorn. It's a sextile angle, which is a harmonious, naturally conductive energy for Scorpio. What it means is that the power of Scorpio is magnified, and the material manifestation of Scorpio is also magnified. So if there's a low-lying anger or a low-lying resentment or pain or traumatic scenarios that have not gotten conclusion or closure, that will become more and more manifested. So it's like bad thoughts or angry thoughts or any type of thoughts. Okay, we got to really think about thoughts right now with Mercury retrograde in Scorpio and this full moon in Taurus on that, both on that axis, and the sun also having passed Mercury. We had the sun Mercury conjunction on October 25th. There's a really interesting just series of events, passage of time that we go from about October 25th to November 5th, where we go from that Sun Mercury conjunct in Scorpio, which deals with the realization of maybe a bad chain of thoughts or this like maybe a bad self-dialogue inside, internal dialogue, realizing that, trying to heal it, and up with the full moon in Taurus on this axis on the 31st, it shines a light onto it further and actually gives us something. It feels that we're given something, or we're experiencing a chain of events or a circumstance. And then as Mercury then stations and goes direct on November 3rd, epiphany, things click into place and we're different, or we're actually starting a transformation or starting an evolution at that time. Many of us have probably felt this coming on for a while, and you don't need to rush into it. It's not about like, oh my gosh, there's a transformation coming. How can I make it happen? How can I make it so? It's not about paranoia either. Paranoia is a big thing that could also be coming in right now. Not really having to do with the full moon in Taurus, but just thinking holistically about the other transits right now. Anybody who has had like maybe a context or a last few years of like paranoid experiences or fearing worst case scenarios, it's really important to think contextually about that too. Like, have you actually been proven wrong every time? Like, you've been really worried that, you know, oh my gosh, I'm being cheated on, or oh my gosh, I'm accidentally, you know, doing something that I shouldn't be doing, or and you just kind of come and it never happens. Like, nothing ever comes of it. That's really good to click right now and start to step out of paranoid cycles, to start to step out of, you know, being your own worst enemy on the inside. And it's so important because now is such a manifesting time. I talked about this in the November 2020 intuitive calendar video, which I'll link below and in the top right-hand corner. I talked about how, whereas over the last few years, we've had a lot of time to just meditate and sit on purpose and thoughts and not really bring them into the real manifested world, what we think a lot about now is much more liable to manifest than it has been ever. Okay, so it's good to think about that, and with that, actually it should be good news. It should be something that we're excited about. The only caveat is that we've got to have a good center base on what we're thinking and how we're thinking, in our habitual thought forms, you know, every single day thinking about, oh my gosh, this could go wrong or that could go wrong. Things could kind of go wrong if we have a constant pessimistic attitude about things going wrong, or every single day, are they cheating on me? Am I being taken advantage of? Am I being disillusioned? Very easy to be cheated on, taken advantage of, or disillusioned if you have a habitual thought form and a habitual way of constantly fearing worst case scenarios, or constantly, you know, indulging in indulging in them. Okay, so yeah, full moon in Taurus is also about indulgences. It's about consumption. It's about nurturing and nutrition too. So with that in mind, there might be, with the Scorpio retrograde energy that we have right now too, addictions, or not realizing that, you know, what is being consumed or what is being engaged is a negative indulgence and not necessary. Okay, and things can really like all of a sudden be like stacked, you know, it's very stacked. So procrastination definitely comes up with this full moon too. Like, what we've put off and not been able to get done could like suddenly stack up. And I do see a lot of people just in that mode, actually. Like, really the best thing for this full moon is to relax into it, is to, you know, not overwork yourself, not, you know, push too hard, not try too hard. Taurus is again about reception and being given. So if you're trying to take or trying to, you know, too hard to manifest, it kind of negates and nullifies the energy. So yes, we do need to just kind of be given right now, to a degree. But I think that many, like a majority of people, have like a lot of things that suddenly come up, like right at the turn of the month. There's something that comes up for a lot of people. So it's like maybe getting like, things together, like getting paperwork together, signing papers, legalities. That is probable for this time too. Like moving or signing a lease or, voting is also happening right during this time as well. So there's a lot of very officious actions that are undertaken. Scorpio and Capricorn coming together is like the energy of a lawyer, or the energy of, entitlements or deeds or property or titles or, nobility, in the sense of being like entitled or landed or something. There's something about land ownership. There's something about, ownership of anything, ownership of a business, ownership of everything. There are people who might think that they own more than they do, or that they, are the sort of the center of the universe. It can be a little bit narcissistic as well, perhaps. But what I will also say is that the Taurus energy, evoking the natural second house, which also deals with like financial transactions and deals with a lesser degree of ownership than like the 8th house and the 10th house, which is Scorpio and Capricorn energy. It's important to know that we have all of those axes, coming in, though. We've got 2nd, 8th house, and 10th house energy. So I definitely think there are things relating to large sums of money, finances, ownership of property, very physical material things, disputes along those lines, law, legalities, businesses, anything along those lines is needed to be like in front of you, or you need to like hold or have a tangible claim on anything that you want to really be working with right now, because the intangible is unconsidered. So that's really important to also think about, with Taurus and Capricorn energy, is that trying to like own somebody's heart, trying to own somebody's, fantasies, trying to own somebody's desires, trying to claim ownership over like a philosophy or anything like that would be completely out of touch with the energies. And it does feel that the egos are so gigantic also right now that some people really do think that they own like another person's momentum, or that they own another person's words. Okay, ownership is something that we definitely need to look at archetypally right now and energetically, and try to really find integrity there. I do think that there's an issue with identity. I do think that people are struggling to know who they are and what they represent right now. But I also think that we have to be patient, and I think that we have to try to understand people, and I think that we have to try to understand that this is like a crazy point in time, and we don't want to compensate in weird ways. We've got to really be careful about claiming the unclaimable, or about letting dark, toxic fears and paranoias seep in like a mold. There's sort of a molding energy with Scorpio, as it's a damp sign, so the dampness sets in and eventually mold grows and it seeps in and it slowly takes over. Our minds can be a little bit like that too. Like once the dampness is there, we've got to dry it out before things get crazy. Okay, because definitely what's possible moving past this full moon is like a sort of emotional turmoil, okay? And turmoil eventually molds. It's like a dampness of the mind, and it has to be dried out, and it has to be warmed up through the energy of like the fire element. Okay, so any paranoias, any turmoil, any, inability to think based in integrity, or inability to consider the broader perspective of the world that we're in. Small needs to perfectionistically grasp onto small points that are in and of themselves not real in any way. It's like a stop sign. It's like when you get in that territory, there's a big stop sign. It's like, okay, hold on. What are we really trying to accomplish here? And to get, again, into some of the positive aspects of this full moon in Taurus, it's really a great threshold, actually. I've talked about how the time of like October 25th till around November 5th is such a great testing period. Going through that time and keeping an eye on the symbolism around you, keeping an eye on how you're feeling and on the events that are transpiring is a great way to gauge your current karmic outlay and what you've been, maybe thinking about or manifesting for a long time, it should be super clear. I don't think it's going to beat around the bush. I think having this Taurus and Capricorn energy makes things so real and so material that there's no, flirting or pretending with fact, or there's no flirting or pretending with what manifests right now. Like, it's really not that allegorical. It's really not that, much of a puzzle. It's not that much of a puzzle where we stand right now, and it's going to become quite clear. And leading up to Capricorn season in December and January, it's going to get clearer and clearer. But I think that you can just really gauge it now, especially, if you're watching this channel, or if you're, quite a symbolic person yourself. Like, it's really easy to see very clear symbols, in this time period of this full moon. And as I was saying, it's like there's a threshold. Like, just by getting through this time, just through, coming through this with an amount of stability or security, you can really lock in that stability and security, and you can really have a sort of an assurance, again, like an assurance of quality, or an assurance of this is the right path, or this is not the right path. Like, it should get really clear, okay? And what is really beautiful is to see that the acceptance or the solidification of identity, as those things come through, and certain people experience that in a very flowery, blooming way, as if it's like a homecoming, or as if it is, such a great miracle that, this is who I am, this is what I represent. That's when you really can encounter like the full moon in Taurus soulmate, or the full moon in Taurus, perfect date, or perfect, soul tribe person. Even like platonic relationships or family relationships can very much level up and become much stronger, much more stable. And even through crisis, or even through difficulty, or even through seeing, okay, yes, I'm completely, out of touch with certain experiences, or I'm completely, I've stretched something out that never meant to be what it is, like things like that I can also see right now. But it's like, it's not for nothing. It actually strengthens and emboldens what needs to be strengthened and emboldened, and that tends to be the case with most difficult experiences, or most problems, or most like a seemingly bad luck experiences tend to be catalysts to make us contribute to what needs to be contributed to in our lives. So on that note, everyone, what a nice contributory moon. What a nice moon to just like accept gifts from the universe, to accept what the identity has come into contact with, and to start to move toward who you want to be, and like what is really actually right. No need to force yourself to be something you're not, or to force yourself into, a type of career or type of ownership of something that's just not you, and you'll have time over the next year actually to really perfect all of this and to make all of this better. It's like, this is kind of, again, a threshold into that. But yes, thank you guys so much for being here. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Be sure to hit the subscribe button if you're new. I post videos like this quite often. And also, for those of you who've been around for a while, I'm putting November 2020 readings up soon, but they are already available on Patreon. You can get them early, ad-free, as well as extended counterparts on Patreon. And I also do weekly forecasts every Saturday, weekly tea chats on Patreon. So it's a great value. I hope you guys will sign up for Patreon if you haven't had the chance yet. It's just so great. And we have a Discord community too that I will link below. And I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram. I have a few other relevant things linked below that you can check out. I have a new merch line. I also have an ebook called Moon Symbols if you wanted to learn more about your moon sign. There's a lot of stuff linked below. Anyway, everyone, thank you so much. I will talk to you soon. Enjoy this time. Much love. Bye.